on to our next caller. Let's go to CJ in Washington.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Very well. Go ahead.
I just don't mind. I agree with a vast majority of the information you guys have. I follow you guys on YouTube. It's how I got to watch the broadcast now. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up that apparently nobody seems to be bringing up is the family law reform movement that's growing in this country, specifically around the topic of Title 4D reform. In Iowa, it was the number one question on RealClearPolitics.org website, and then it got pushed to the Concord, or the New Hampshire debate, and the Concord Monitor took the question, and they refused to answer the number one question. And I don't know if you guys can find it, but Real Clear Politics has that is the number one question is, do you support family law reform and Title 4D reform? But to date, only a few of the candidates that answered are like Chris Christie. There was just a few of them. But
well, tell the audience what family law reform is specifically, because I'm assuming that you're talking about child protective services, but I'm not that familiar with the issue, quite frankly. So go ahead and tell the audience.
There's so many. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many problems when it comes to our family law court. I guess to break it down to Family Court 101 is that the government has set up rules for custody of children. And it's a very vicious game. There's many different branches. There's CPS, there's the court system itself, there's the attorneys, the state bar associations, all these interests in this gigantic $50 billion+ a year industry. And it all revolves around how much child support can be ordered. If you look into the Title IV Funding Act of the under Social Security Act, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to cover too much of it unless you want me to, but basically it turns one parent into a visitor while the state can collect money on incentives through the Social Security Act. So any American that pays FICA, part of your money is going into this system. It's used for essentially taking away children from parents and producing visitors, not parents. And there's millions of people that are following right now the Father's Rights movement. Parental equality movement is coming, more out of the politically correct era from the Father's Rights movement. It's a little taboo to say Father's Rights movement, but what we're seeing is our judicial branch, known as family law, is more of a court of equity and how much money you can afford to put out for an attorney. And meanwhile, like I said, it systematically destroys not only the individuals involved, but it also hurts our economy as far as, our funding goes for this. We fund it through the Social Security Act. So people want to know why Social Security isn't, solvent, it isn't sustainable. It's because we are taking money from it, and they're using that money to put it towards the executive, portion of it. There's judges are tied to how much money they produce in child support orders, is how much money the state can collect in just federal funding, and it's such a mess. It's so hard to talk about. There's so many webs involved in this, but the number
it seems like a very complex issue. I think I talked to somebody about this briefly when we went out to Albuquerque, as in one of the videos, and he brought up a similar, well, probably talking about the exact same thing.
Tommy Queen. His name is Tommy Queen.
Oh, so you know him? Yeah.
And because we've been following you guys around the country, these rallies, trying to get your cameras to at least talk to us about family law reform. And I'm glad that you were, able to take my call. But the big issue that comes out of this is that our law enforcement doesn't know how to respond when things in court happen. Like, let's say one parent kidnaps another child. The bureaucracy that person has to go through to get their child back is so convoluted, it's so monetary based, that if you can't afford to pay your child, they just take it away.
I get personal stories all the time from people who have been rung through either in a divorce type situation like that or with CPS trumping up charges against them. It is really criminal what our government has done, and on every level. It is out of control and unresponsive to the people. And it's difficult to do it on a case-by-case basis. So this might be something that maybe we can get our teeth into if we look at the family law reform movement. Because when people come to us with a specific case, there's always, there's so much background to get into it. It's very difficult to investigate it.
I'm not, like, for example, like, I mean, I have my own case, but what I'm trying to say is that the government has set up this arena for this to even take place. It's not based upon the Constitution. It's actually based upon Admiralty law. And when you don't have the average citizen, like you guys were saying earlier, you know, the mechanic doesn't know the tax man. Well, most of the time, the computer technician doesn't know a family law attorney, or a soldier doesn't know a family law attorney. And to be perfectly honest, with veteran suicide the way it is, even in the VA's top list for problems for veterans, I think it's like 8 or 9 out of the top 10 issues for veteran are family court related. And a lot of it revolves around custody of children. It's kind of one of those unspoken, they know what the problem is, but they can't really fix it. And so that's why we can push forward with this Title 4D reform and that family law reform, basically saying, do you support the right of or children, basically? Do you support the right of children to have 2 fit and loving parents and have those rights protected equally under law? Well, if you do, then you're currently against our family court system. I personally testified in front of our Senate Law and Justice Committee and our House Judiciary Committee here in Washington State. And right next to me was the family law section of the State Bar Association. I just got done testifying my case in front of them, and he comes up and he says, people do commit fraud, people do lie, people lie all the time in family law.
All right, CJ, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but we got to move on to our other callers. If you have some more information, you can send it to us at showtips@infowars.com.
And that's a key thing for people to look up. Look up family law reform, look up Title IV, because I know there are a lot of people. Divorce is so rampant in our society. Almost everybody's going to get caught up in this at one point or the other. So it's something that we should all be concerned about. And on so many different levels, the judicial system as well as the government is just completely broken. And as he pointed out, it's not even remotely based on the Constitution anymore. It's just based on fraud, complexity, and bluff. Let's just put it that way. Let's go to our next call.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, CJ.